What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Andre King coming at you today, and I know I've been dibbling and dabbling in the CCIE DevNet study material for, oh man, probably the last 8, 9, maybe even the whole year, but I finally decided to buckle down and go ahead and take it very, very seriously. And so I'm aiming to basically sit for the exam next summer, so probably about 9 months away. And what I'd like to do today is to really just do a deep dive into some of the items that I've learned here in week 1 of my studies. And the hope or the aim is to basically share with you my journey as we go along. So hopefully you enjoy. So let's get started. So we've got some boilerplate code here, going to be really going over what all of this means. But let's go ahead and hop on over into Eve NG. And let's get a router set up. Let's just get it started. Nothing special. There we go. Drag it on over. And we'll connect it to this private cloud. Gig 0 is fine. And there we go. All right, and that's just so that this network here, this virtualized network, can communicate here locally with the private host or PC here, so that we can basically, not to say push code, but that our code can interface with this router so that we can basically demonstrate something. So we'll go ahead and hit start, let that boot up, open this up, and I'll fast forward through this, but basically want to get the router started up here. But really just want to show that there's no boilerplate code or no trickeration going on here. But the aim today is to basically use a Telnet library. I know it's old school, but we start off with the basics to basically Telnet into this device and to just do some configurations, and then real quickly see if we can take it to the next level by basically asking for user input. So we'll start pretty simple here, and then we'll work our way up, and that should basically leave us with a lot of things that we can add to our arsenal there. Hey, normally it asks for, do we want to enter that user mode, but we'll come on back here. But all right, so let's go ahead and here. All right, so let's go ahead and explain this one, basically starting from the top. So what we have here is a Telnet class that's basically from Python's built-in Telnetlib. That library there is, as you know, Telnet's a protocol that's unsecure or insecure, whichever one of those is correct, but it helps us to remotely connect to devices over the internet, such as routers like we have here today, using that Telnet protocol. So we're going to import that library in, and then we got some variables here. Basically, as you can tell, we're going to change our host name to R22. And then we need to pull an IP address and basically assign it to that variable. And then we're going to set the username and password both to Cisco there. Okay, coming on down here, these are just, yeah, I call them methods. I'm sure that's not the proper terminology, but the telnet underscore con.write. But this is basically here where we need to establish our telnet connection. And so this first line creates the telnet connection to the router. And then, of course, because we did the assignment up here, whatever IP address we put here, when we dynamically pull it, it's going to basically try to connect to that IP address to establish that connection so that we can send our commands and, of course, receive our responses. And then next up here, these next 2 lines, this is where we're going to send our username and our password. And so telnet underscore con.write, this is basically how we're going to send that data to the router. And we know that, of course, computers deal with bits, which are, zeros and ones. And so we actually need to encode that. And because we're typing strings in here, then ASCII is going to be what we need to convert that string, in our case, Cisco, into the bytes in that ASCII format. So this is going to help us convert, of course, our human readable text into the byte format before we actually send that out across the wire. And the same holds true for the password in the very next line. So we need these two lines so that the Telnet protocol knows how to handle the communication basically between our Python script and the router that we see there. So next up, we of course have a multi-line, it looks like a comment, but really this is our list of commands. This is what we would type into the privileged console, and we're going to basically assign all of that to this variable name commands. And that's what's going to be kind of the crux. Once we get past, of course, the authentication section, this is really going to be what we type. So we know these first few lines, of course, configure terminal is what gets us into configuration mode on the router. Then we're going to be configuring or getting into interface loopback 10 that doesn't exist, assigning it an IP address, giving it a brief description. We're going to hit or type in to or send the command in to exit configuration mode, and then exit to basically log out of the router. And then real quickly, these last two lines, telnet_con.write, and then of course we have our commands.encode again to encode the characters there. This is going to send those strings of commands that are above to the router. And just like our username and password, this needs to be encoded using ASCII. And the last line is what's going to help us. We don't need it, but this is going to help us validate and basically read the output almost as if we were sitting into the router, like, of course, logged into it. But this, of course, is basically trying to get us towards an automated type fashion. So with that being said, let's get on back in here. There's a few commands that we need to type. We don't need this. I think I hit no. Let's see. All right. All right, so here we go. So first up, let's do enable, get into configure terminal, change the host name to R22. We need a username. We got login, which I kind of want to keep on. Username Cisco, password Cisco. Actually, out of order. Privilege 15, password Cisco. Then we need to do line VTY04. We'll do transport input all, and then login. We'll use the local database. And oh yeah, do show IP and brief. All right, gig 0. So we'll go into gig 00, no shot, IP address DHCP, and gig 00. No. Sorry. There we go. All right, so that's the IP address that we need to basically take 192.168.1.174 and put that here, 1.74. And we should be able to ping that from local computer. Yep. So we got reachability between my local laptop and of course that virtual machine in even G. So we should be all set. Let's not that we need to, but let's go ahead and save the config here. And all right. And so now the moment of truth. We'll just go ahead and save this, and then we'll hit play. All right, there we go. And so no errors, everything worked. This again, for the folks that of course have messed with routers or switches, this is what you would see. And of course from the CLI. And if we go back here, that's why we left logging enabled. So to the console, and we see that of course the loopback automatically comes up. So if we basically hit enter a few times, press up, then we should now see that we have that loopback 10 configured without us, of course, being here locally in that console. All right, there we go. So pretty cool, I would think. But again, before we get out of here today, let's see if we can take this to the next level. So what if we don't really want this to be like a static config? We want some kind of interactivity or basically something dynamic. And we want to basically put the ball in the court of the user. Let them say what interface is going to be, what the host name will be. Well, we're not configuring the host name, but blah, 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 blah. So let's go ahead and change this up here a bit. I'll basically type this stuff real quick and then I'll come back and explain it. So one moment. All right, so basically here we just are basically using the input function, which is going to prompt the user for each of these lines, the interface name here, and it's going to store whatever's typed up until the enter key into this variable here. And for each of these, we basically needed to substitute it here and then reference it down here. And so formatting it needs to be in this basic particular order because we're not using F string. So if we hit play here, we should be asked, please enter an interface name, and we'll say loopback 20. Enter the IP 20.20.20.20 mask 255. And this would just be real quick tests. Although that's pretty long. All right, and so that all got sent. And there we go. So similar to the last time, we didn't get any errors there. And if we come back here, similar to the last time, we see, of course, the logging to the console indicating that we should be good. If I can type, we should be good to go across the wire there as well. So loopback 10 100.100. I don't know what I was thinking there, but like I said, this is just the beginning, and practice, of course, I'm not going to say it's going to make perfect, but perfect practice, they say, will. But just want to share some of the small things that I learned, clean up on some of these mistakes, and then really continue to learn the why and just stay in the lab with repetition. And really a lot, the routing, of course, isn't new to me, but all of these libraries, VS Code isn't too new. But of course, not being a developer, it's taking an extra time to make some of these things click. But again, won't bore you guys here at the end, but I hope that you found some value here. And like I said, stay tuned to help hopefully come along for this journey with me. And we'll probably be trying to book that lab sometime early next year. I try to get in the calendar 3 months out to try to reserve a date. And from the routing and switching last year, I think they reserved 1 DevNet seat. So you might have to do this one pretty early, but things could change. But like I said, thank you so much for all of your support out there. And until next time, stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Peace.